Hey, welcome back everybody. Welcome back to my channel, Amused Jester. My name is Junior. Today we're going to take a look at Magneto from X-Men. Actually, this is from Hono Studios, or a subsidiary of Hot Toys, the cheaper version, supposedly cheaper version. Um, Now, Hono Studios is first started at 160 with the Wolverine figure. This is 175, but then the later ones were 200. So I don't really know how long this will continue and how long I'll continue to support it, because it is ever creeping up in prices. Anyway, there's the front of the box, here's the side of the box, there's the back of the box, and that's it. It's basically kind of like a, I guess not a slip-on cover, um, but this is how it opens up. I really hope this is just gonna be okay and there's nothing wrong with this thing, because I waited for quite a while to open this up. I think I've had this for over a month now. So this is part. It's kind of interesting how they constructed this box. So if you're wondering where I got this, it's actually part of the initial box inside it. See, and this is basically the instruction. It's kind of interesting how they did it. I think this is a better format than the booklet. It's kind of interesting too because it's kind of drawn. Um, there's instruction. So technically you can actually if you want to, you can display this if you want. So that's one part of the box. We'll keep on opening it up. And let me take this out. So the reason why we're starting with this one is this is basically the backdrop. What this is basically kind of like a backdrop where you can open it up. If I can do this like so, and you can put a comic book in here and serve as a backdrop. Now this is thin. This is thinner than the plastic container that you use for your meals. It's that thin. In fact, actually feels like the black plastic is thinner than the clear plastic. So I would almost say this is about as thick as a heavy comic book bag. Yeah, it's very thin, very flimsy, which is kind of disappointing, but I don't really plan on displaying uh, my figure with this one because I think it will just take way too much space. For the Wolverine one, I don't even know where that is. And the other interesting too is, as you open this up, this is the back of the box, literally the back of the box. If you don't have this comic book issue, they do give you a printout here where you can just cut out if you want, but then of course that would ruin your box for you. So here is the figure. Excuse the noise, so we'll just do kind of like a live unboxing, but it will be noisy. While we're doing this, I just want to point out, I wasn't really that enthusiastic ordering Magneto, because look, it's getting to the point that Hot Toys is very expensive. Even Hono, even though this is cheaper version, you're talking about the X-Men. Just the heroes alone, you're talking about 10 characters. You have you have Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Archangel, Iceman, Beast, if they're ever gonna do those, right? And then you expand it to the villain side, which you'll probably, if you're a true completist, you'll probably want to match a villain per hero. So if you have 7 heroes, you'll need 7 villains, you know. And so it's like at times what? Times 150 if you're lucky, or times 160, or times 200. You know what I mean? So it's really expensive. These are effects. We'll go through it again. So I wasn't sure if I was willing to do it or to stick with this, and I can even see right now that there's something wrong with my figure, or maybe it's just, oh, it's just reflection. Looks like the cape is tucked in behind. Yeah, see, this is the reason why you don't want to force it. Look at how they package this. Now, I guess it's good, but you need to make sure, you need to look behind and see what's going on. Because if you had just pulled on that cape, and having felt how thin the fabric is already, it's a possibility if you had tugged it from the front and forced it, then you would have been creating snag. Now remember, this is a 200 or almost $200 figure, so be very careful. Of course, it's your toy, you don't need to, but like for me, it's $200, and even though I spent it on a toy, it's still $200, and yeah, I want to at least try to keep it not destroyed. See, this is thin fabric and this is sharp plastic and could have easily snagged in there. I can also see it's a wired cape, so that's kind of interesting. So for this, I would just, of course, there's nothing in the front here. Now it might pull off naturally, like see, like gravity is basically pulling it out. So I'm just gonna carefully kind of feed it through the hole so there's no snag. There could be a better way of doing things, but yeah. And of course, because this is already doesn't have the cover in front, I'm assuming all the accessories that was in their cubby holes have dropped off. Yes. Not the most cleanest of um, removal, but I would prefer I keep the cape intact and have everything splashed down than otherwise. This is a desiccant, which I'm gonna start keeping because I'm gonna need those. I'm just gonna start 3D printing, guys. So I'm gonna need desiccants. Oh, this is the rod that you will attach to the base. The base, let's see how it feels. It feels actually better. I think I remember with the Wolverine, oh, it feels about the same. It's got some Mars on the surface already. Just some scuffs. Oh, that's fine. And one end is solid, one end is not. So we'll put in the non-solid one here. And there's the hook, I suppose. So it's not a, I kind of, you know what, I think I kind of like this one better. It's not an actual crotch grabber, but more like a hook that will go underneath their crotch. So when it's plastic, so it's not gonna, like, you know how it is with Hot Toys or Hono, sometimes the fabric that they have has a texture, a rubberized texture, and sometimes over time, if you have the usual prongs underneath here, those will create contact and eventually mar the surface. Anyway, so let's flip them over, and before we do, interesting. So if you're wondering in terms of accessories, this is it. That's it for the accessories. So let me change camera positions and zoom in a little bit. All right, guys. So these are the, I guess, magnetic effects that you can put. Oh, and then, so it's got two pairs of hands, kind of like an open grabbing hand and a fist. I'm really hoping that the surface of my reviewings is usually clean. Okay, let's move that. So let's see. Very plain, as you can see. That's, and this is just the exact opposite. And It's an interesting effect. And I'm assuming the fingers would just plug in. So you're just gonna look and see which fingers are can be appropriately placed on this one. And then this one. What I did is like I plugged in the thumb first, and then whichever hand corresponds to the space is, I'm guessing, is what it's supposed to plug into. See? Alright, and then it comes with an extra pair of pegs. We're going to look at the close-up of Magneto. That's pretty cool. The head is just the one head. And the helmet is not removable from the head. That is one piece. The detail is really good, as you can see. The paintwork is not supposed to be realistic, but it's detailed enough where you look at the eyebrows. It's not just like one paint of silver or gray. There's actually like washes in between to accentuate the hair. And the eyes, even though it's not realistic eyes, it is still nicely painted. The teeth, I like the fact that it's uneven, it's not perfect. I've seen actual people's teeth more perfect looking than this, so I like that. There's a paint application on the helmet, and I'm going around it to make sure that my helmet is nice and well painted and there's no scuffs or paint drips or anything. It's got a tuft of hair in the back. Oh, so it's the look at this one. The printing of this, I almost didn't see it until I started looking that this is an actual gauntlet already. But they almost did a perfect color matching between the fabric and the gauntlet. And the back, oh, it's a zipper, so that's good. This is rubber, and I can tell right now I'm not a big fan of what they're doing with this. So this is not loose. This is actually connected into this one piece. And why I don't like it is look at how ugly that looks. It just, and you can't adjust it because they already glued it. So if they glued it improperly, which is what's happening with mine, where this one's slightly higher than this, you can't really adjust it. Now with the Wolverine, it's the same issue, but then somebody mentioned that on eBay, some people are actually selling these. But with the Wolverine one, they did a, you know what? I don't even know where my Wolverine is. The Wolverine one has like almost a thong. Now this one is a little bit more of a pants look. But the advantage of having that thong look is that the one on eBay now, you can slip it on and you can't tell, and it looks a lot better. But because this is already um, fairly big and looks like a pair of pants, even if you find it, it's gonna look awkward. I also don't like the fact of how this looks. Look at that. It's like wide and suddenly narrow. That it definitely looks like a joint. So the body that they use in this one, I don't really approve of, but we'll talk about that some more. Again, same situation as the one on the gauntlet where they almost did a good color match between the fabric and the actual rubber piece. You see this white over here? That's not a reflection. That seems to be an actual scuff or paint on mine. And there's plastic in there just to protect it, but the ankle goes down like so, up like so, ankle rocker, and everything. All right, so let's try and zoom out a little bit. Let's look at the articulation a little bit. So head goes up in a good amount, goes down with a good amount. That's with the help of the ball joint here up the base of the head and the neck as well. Goes off well. The side, yep. Let me pull off the head really quick so we can see, look and see what the situation is. Be very careful. This one, this is hard plastic and you might break it off if you're not careful. Also the same thing with the tips of the helmet. Okay, so that's the situation on the neck. I feel like the body is hard here and then there's a cut here and then it becomes a rubber overlay. You can't, I think you can, if you want to, you probably could remove this. It might be Velcro, but I'm not gonna push it. But if you can see that this is more pliable. So there's a connector here, a ball joint, and I feel like there's a ball joint there that connects into the main body. That's why you're able to move that, which is really good. It adds to the articulation. Here's the bottom of the body. This almost could have had movable eyes because it already has right there for the eyes. It has its own template. Same thing almost. No, at least just for the eyes, but they didn't do that. But I'm okay. Plugs in really easily. Let's look at the articulation on the shoulder. Moves very nicely. Not loose. There's no ratchets. Not necessary. Bicep joints. Double bend on the elbow. Very nice. More than 90. When rotating the shoulder, just be very careful, of course, because you'll have fabric resistance. But even with that fabric, as you can see, wow, you can, not a problem. Like there's a tightness in the joint enough that it's not going to spring back. And the material, so the material initially it feels thin, but um, I don't know what material they use in this one. It feels much better than the SSR Justice Superman, which I'll bring in over here. Actually, you know, it kind of feels about the same thickness, but there's a surface to this one. This one's smoother and this one's a little bit more rougher. So that's nice. But yeah, there's, look at that. That's pretty good. Brings out like so. Twist on the elbow. Alright. I think that's a good enough range. It's a naturalistic range. I'm happy with that. How about going forward? That's actually kind of interesting, what I want. It's not bad. This is more disappointing. Let me see. Okay, that's a, yeah. So there is more. You just need to kind of move it around. And it's thin enough. That's why I thought maybe that's not so good. But yeah, it's thin enough. You can actually see some sort of reflection going on underneath. But or at least with my naked eye, I can see it. And for the legs, because of how thin the fabric is, again, and the tightness of the joints, there's really very little resistance to bring it back down. So I'm kind of liking this fabric. That's the maximum of the thigh. Going out, very well done. Very tight joints. tight but not like restricting tight. And then double jointed at the knee, so that's good. And I've already shown you the ankle articulation. The other thing I'm not really very particularly fond of is, like, look at how little butt Magneto has. And this one looks like it's Velcro. That's weird. Why would they use Velcro on this one, but then have it glued to this one? Huh. Alright, so, and then there's the leg and thigh. Um, it's just this one kind of, then this one too. That's what is something I'm not entirely fond of. So this is 170. Really nice joints. I feel like I want to keep on messing around with this pants. I encountered this type of pants where it's glued into the uh, leg pants on a Mezco toy, and I never really liked it. It should be a separate piece of clothing, and I don't know why uh, they've done this. Let me go ahead and just replace one of the hands to see how easy it is. Oh yeah, it comes off really easily. And I'm gonna pull off the gauntlet to show you that, come on, is it really actually glued in there? It might actually be, so I'm not gonna force it. I don't think it is, but there's some sort of resistance when I pull it, so I'm gonna leave it like that. And then we'll plug this in, but I can't show you. I mean, obviously it's like some sort of a hinge ball socket in there, but I can't see where it is because it's being hidden by the fabric. It pushes in really easily, but because I don't know where the hinge is, I don't know if it's going this way. Oh, it's going that way. Okay, so I will just twist it like that. That way you can do this. Then plug this in again for the effects. Alright, so the wires is basically here to the sides, connected to here. There's nothing in the bottom. Let me go ahead and change position really quickly. Alright guys, so here he is standing on the base for now. I kind of wish, I know it's only Hono, it's supposed to be cheaper and everything, but I like the idea of the wide cape, but at the same time, I'm kind of, look, I have to, in order for me to make this look good standing up, I'm gonna have to futz around with the cape and just play with it. Now, the good thing is that this wire is really strong. Well, not strong enough to the point where it would look good. Maybe you can see, you can hold it. So that's kind of interesting. But of course, the problem, of course, with wired capes is there's no way you can have it hanging naturally. There's just no way. So let me futz with it a little bit, and we'll see how we can make it interesting. Alright, about maybe 10 minutes of futzing, I decided to give him a more regal imperial look. As you might know, the purple has been associated with that color purple has been associated with regalness and imperialism and royalty and everything. So, and you know, Magneto he's got that very type of personality where he thinks he's like some sort of imperial, that he needs to rule above everybody else, so, or that he's superior. So I gave him that kind of like Romanesque look. Yeah, I mean, like, it's cool. The fact that the joints really holds very well, I really like it. It's not loose, and I think the fabric helps a lot on that. For 170, that's not bad. That's not bad for 170. Not a lot of accessories and everything, but honestly, I think that's not bad. How does he hold against Wolverine? Well, here's Wolverine. So it's good that Wolverine is not the same height, so he's smaller, and I feel like that's a good size comparison between the two. And here's that thing I was talking about. I actually kind of prefer this now than what they did with Magneto, because you still have the nice uh, texturing and everything over here for the pants. All the only reason why this is not so well done is because of how skimpy it looks. But I feel like because they did it this way, you have the articulation the same as Magneto's. But I feel like, yeah, it does look really skimpy, right, compared to Magneto's. But I prefer the look of this one. I don't prefer the execution because they glued it. There's no reason to glue that. And let me show you why. I brought this in earlier. Here's Superman from Social SSR. This is not glued in. It's all loose. It's a separate fabric. I can futz with this accordingly, you know. So I don't know why they glued that in there. That doesn't make sense to me. And here's SSR Superman compared to Magneto. Definitely much more robust, much more wider, much more heroic. But again, alluding to my earlier review of SSR, how they mess around with the proportions of the head compared to the body to make it more super heroic. An old trick that illustrators did in the comic books. Magneto, even though he's comic book based, he is more proportioned. The head is more proportioned to the body. All right, so final thoughts on Magneto, Hono Studios, 1/6 scale, for $170. As you can see, I currently have him sort of floating in the base display that he has. One drawback of the one crotch grabber thing is that, of course, you have to balance him a little bit in order for him to stand up. Even the crotch grabber, though, with the two prongs, that doesn't really help. It's if it doesn't have the clamp on the waist. But for something like this, actually, this I feel like this is much more safer for the figure, unlike the clamp where you will have something clamping on the torso, which might cause either, for example, for these rubberized part here to get stuck later on in the future and everything. But yeah, so in terms of the like the cape, if we had the option of having two capes, one wired, one without, that would be so good. I feel like that's the next step for companies to start uh, adding more value to their products, because having the two types of capes in there would be really really nice for flowing action like this, and then for just standing people. This one, it holds, as you can see, but be prepared to be frustrated sometimes because it's just almost at the right weight where it can hold it, but at the same time I feel like in warmer temperatures that will just like start to fall off and become frustrating for people. Proportionately, I feel proportionately it works really well. And once you have them post with this one, you don't really see the problems that I was having with the hips and area over here, because being it was too kind of bulging to the outside, so that hides it a bit. As far as accessories, I feel like it's got enough accessories for the price point. It's giving us 170. In fact, I'm quite pleased that they added these magnetic effects for the price point. um, Articulation is good, the detail is good. Again, is they're almost applying the same amount of quality detail that I would expect from a Marvel Legends or Star Wars 6-inch figures, where I always say, look, if you can't, if you have to be cheap in terms of applying paint application to your figure, at least concentrate on the face, because the face is always where our eyes will gravitate towards, right? Everything else becomes secondary. So all the detail, all that paint application is on the face, on and that's what draws your eye in. And then everything else, in terms of shadowing and everything, that will fall naturally with lighting. As you can see, It's not a lot, but it's there. Enough, to keep the cost down. I'm okay with that. Um, for a character that I wasn't really interested in getting because, like I said earlier, this hobby is now getting to the point where if you're thinking of getting multiple characters, you have to be picky unless you're super rich and you don't really care and you have a lot of space and everything. Initially, all I really wanted when I saw um, Wolverine over here, which is 160, and I feel like he's really a good value as well. Um, for the Hono Studios, I really did not want to get into X-Men. For the Hono Studios, what I really wanted to get was the core group of Avengers, Marvel characters. Um, like I said, specifically Avengers like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, maybe, I'm not sure. Um, yeah, those are, and just spend like less than $1,000. You know what I mean? That's what I was willing to give Hono Studios, unless for somehow they were able to really get me. So why did I get Wolverine? Because it really freaking looks good. It's 160. It's the first figure in the line, an introductory figure, and I wanted to support it. And why did I get Magneto? Well, I have Wolverine. At least I'll have a villain counterpart to him. So that's okay. And it was still 170. It was still good. But then I'm not sure. I think Spider-Man the symbiote costume was 200, which is like ridiculous because that looks ridiculous. Iron Man is 200, which I'm very very happy with. But I'm kind of segueing here. What is the value that I'm assigning Magneto at 170 for the accessories that he's got and everything? I'm gonna go higher than 12. Value 12. Base price 10 equaling to 170 plus tax. We're gonna start the value at 12 and we're gonna start putting things together. Is it a 13? I'm gonna say yes. That head sculpt is really really good. Is it a 14? I'll still give it a 14 because I feel like the accessories are good. I wasn't really happy with the cape, but then it's kind of winning me over if I want to pose it flying like that. And with Magneto, the magnetic effect and the flying effect, I think that works. So it's good. Is it a 15? I'm not going to give it a 15. I feel like 14 is a really good value for it. What's the difference between a 14 and a 15? Is no regrets, like no flaws for some. And then anything over 20 is like 20 won't apply to Hot Toys for me because 20 is like for figures that are 6-inch figures where I'll get multiples and multiples of this one. 15 I suppose is high enough. Why is it not gonna be 15? Because the pants, I don't know why they did that with the pants. I suppose that with the way I have him configured right now, I don't really see it. I don't really see that one is higher than the other. I don't really see the fact that they glued it in. Well, I can kind of see it now that I know it's there. Um, and then of course if you have him on an A, again because he's on a flight pose like this, I don't really see how bulging this is on the outside. Um, so the way he's posed right now actually really helps his value at 14. I feel like if I'm seeing those two, I would actually lower his value down to 13. I know it's there, but it's just being cleverly hidden by the pose. So yeah, and then of course the joints are really nice and stiff. With the combination of the fabric, it's thin enough to show the musculature of the figure, but still, I feel like it still might be thick enough that it's not gonna rip or snag like the old Batman from Hot Toys 1966. So yeah, I think it's a good. It's for Hono, as long as they can keep it between below 200. Honestly, I feel like when they cross the 200 mark, which is what they did with Iron Man, I'm like, I'm not gonna. At that point, I'm gonna get choosy and picky with the characters that I'm getting. 200 is venturing into the old Hot Toys pricing. Um, and you might be looking at the Hot Toys prices right now. It says 200 for Hot Toys. What year were you talking about, dude? Like, Hot Toys hasn't been 200 for long time, and you're right, but I still remember Hot Toys being 160, 170 when the first Mark 1 Iron Man, the first version came out, that was 165, I think. So I don't like to be dragged into the prices where Hot Toys and these 1/6 figures are going into now, because it seems like 300 is the regular pricing now. And yes, inflation, the economics of going on worldwide is playing into effect with it. But I'm not using that as a valid reason for me to spend more. That's basically me being priced out, honestly. But so for the price of 170 from Hono Studios, which is, it's a subsidiary of Hot Toys, so you already know what kind of quality Hot Toys can bring. So um, there's nothing to hang it up. You kind of wish it would have a second head sculpt or second expression, movable eyes. But again, I'm sticking to the price point. At this point, it looks good. It displays well. You can move it around. It's fabric. It's 1/6, 170 is a good price for something like this. Um, I think that's pretty much it for my review of Hono Studios 1/6 scale Magneto, their comic book version. I hope it was informative. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys on my next review. Bye.